All right, Brian, what's up, man? Glad you're here. Another podcast about to go into the books, and we're talking about traveling safe. Like, how do you stay cyber safe this summer as people are traveling domestically and internationally? Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I think putting together a plan and prepping and making sure that you got the right the right protections in place can really be a big deal, because you're going to actually be able to save yourself from, maybe getting your credentials compromised, your identity stolen, and lots of other bad things, right?
Yeah, build the habits and get used to doing that as you travel and save yourself a lot of trouble, and share it with your friends and family as they're traveling and using their devices as you're on vacation.
Yeah, for sure. And like, one of the things that I was thinking about when we were kind of putting together the slides and like doing the show prep and all was, and I've heard this before from other people, just in the industry, and when we're kind of talking to prospects and things like that, is sometimes there's this sense that, is this, or the question is like, is this really for real, or is it just a bunch of hype for NordVPN and Norton and all these other companies, and to sell their cybersecurity solutions? But it's 100% for real. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that things can go wrong for the average person when they're traveling. So I just put in a few news headlines. The one on the far right is really weird, but it is happening. It's with people that are carrying a lot of crypto. I remember seeing something in the news about this a couple of weeks ago, I guess. And not good. So you don't want to be there, and you also don't want to be, getting your credentials compromised because you're using insecure networks and all the other stuff. So we can dig in. I think so. The first topic is the Wi-Fi public network risks. I mean, these are just a few, right? Man in the middle. That's where somebody gets in between you and your bank app, or whatever the end app or service you're using. Evil twin networks, right? That's when somebody's going to use their laptop and some tools, maybe even something small like a Flipper Zero or whatever, to spin up a Wi-Fi network that looks like the airport's network or the hotel's network, right? It's the same name. Or even just like, hey, free Wi-Fi. Yeah. And also session hijacking, where somebody's able to steal the browser cookies, and for people to understand. So whenever you communicate with a web app like your bank or anything else, right, there's this little file or files that get dropped on your computer or your phone, and the file's called a cookie, and that contains your session. So once you log in, you've kind of got this session cookie, and if a bad guy can steal that along with some other bits of information, they can actually take over your banking session, for example, and then do things like transfer your money to their account or something.
Yeah, and the more and more commonality of free public Wi-Fi at hotels, airports, and everywhere else, and that treasure trove of information, and the fact that people are using those is why the VPN piece is so common. I mean, you can get them through Google, using paid email services like the Proton, that they have a VPN. There's numerous ways to get a VPN. They're not typically very expensive, but that commonality of free open Wi-Fi is a very good reason to use a VPN. They're not bulletproof. They're not 100%, just like any other tool, but it's better to have that in place.
Mm-hmm.
It's so common because if people could see the information that's openly floating across these open network, they would not be so readily excited about the free Wi-Fi network. So people are grabbing that information. It's floating across those open networks.
Yeah, like literally, right? It's literally floating across the network. And, until your session is encrypted with your bank or whatever app or service you're using, there's a lot of data that's actually transmitting between your phone or your laptop and out to the internet, that if you've got the right tools and if the bad guys got the right tools and access, they can literally dump that off on their machine and like look through your data as it's transiting between your device and the end service that you're using.
Yeah, as people are more mobile using tablets and phones for their stuff, bad actors are equally as mobile, running their
Mhm.
stuff on phones and tablets, whether it's Kali Linux or whatever else they're wanting using.
Mhm.
They're using this and they're just as mobile so that they don't have to have a big setup somewhere to be able to grab your data.
Yeah, and literally all this stuff that we're going to talk about, we're not going to get into the weeds and all the technical, like how to bad guys do all this stuff, but literally all you need these days is a regular laptop, right? I mean,
Oh,
a
yeah.
regular laptop and maybe an external wireless, dongle and the right kind of OS like Kali or something like that, and you can
Yep.
literally do pretty much most of the stuff that you would want to do as a cyber criminal. So you don't
That's
even
it.
stand out, right? It's not like it's
Yep.
your dude over there, this whole kit of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. You can even put a business suit on and look cool while you're doing it.
That's
Um,
it.
so you talked about VPNs a second ago. So, I mean, they are really important because from the time, so they enable encryption from end to end, so that your traffic is encrypted from your laptop through to your VPN service provider. And then, we're going to have to rely on some other layers, right? Like SSL, TLS, but, all the way to like your bank or your airline or whatever it is that you're using, right? You want to kind of talk a little bit about VPN and how you use it, or?
Yeah, which I have VPNs on my phone. I've got the what I use, I share it with my wife. I even have my parents using VPNs. My dad's in it. He's 79, and luckily he is comfortable using a mobile phone, has a laptop. I've got
Mm-hmm.
VPNs on their stuff. I don't travel heavily, usually several times a year for work and stuff or personal, and we're always using VPN. And I've talked about it enough with family and friends and stuff to where they're using VPNs, and I make sure that we are for everything as we're traveling. So hitting, and then even more times than not, I'll usually use instead of the free network, open network at a hotel, I'll use the Wi-Fi hotspot piece
Yeah.
on my phone and do that, and then have the VPN turned on my laptop when I connect to the hotspot on my phone. So both are encrypted, and that's a lot more secure than getting on that free hotel Wi-Fi. So 9 times out of 10, unless for some reason the mobile hotspot's not working on the phone, I'll get on. I might use the hotel one briefly and make sure the VPN is on. But like I said, I'll even circumvent that and use the hotspot on my phone to help with that too.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I'm a big hotspot user too, because I mean, it's a network I know and trust, and
Yeah.
for all the reasons you mentioned. And by the way, I mean, we're not really endorsing a specific VPN vendor here. I full disclosure, the image that people are seeing on this slide was AI generated, so I don't know
Yeah.
if Shield VPN is a thing because I didn't look into it. But I mean that, like you were saying, there's some good ones out there. If
Yeah.
you stick with ones that don't do logging, that's really a good deal to get into. And there's some big name VPNs out there that work just fine. Uh,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about like some of the precautions. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the precautions that you can take as a traveler, and really help yourself out. And to be honest with you, if you kind of get into the hang of and the habit of doing this, some people may look at this and they say, Jesus, sounds like a chore, for Pete's sake. I got to minimize my data and make sure all the things are updated. But really, if you kind of get into the habit of doing it, it just kind of becomes part of you know, your way of travel. So, and
Yeah.
we've got some other slides, obviously, with some more detail in there, but minimizing the amount of data that you're taking, like on your device, if it's possible, if it's feasible, and you can take I'll just call it a burner phone. It might not necessarily be a burner phone, but and maybe a laptop that's not your daily driver, right? Something that you can just, when you get back, especially if you're going to hotspot countries, right, where
Yeah.
certain laws are in place, where they definitely are spying on internet traffic and things like that, or you might be subject to search or something at their customs or whatever. If you can take these temporary devices, well, when you get back and you have to wipe them and reset them or whatever, you're not losing anything and you're not disrupting everybody knows what a pain in the butt it is to, have to reset your phone, or if you lose your phone, you got MFA and all that other kind of stuff. So, um, thoughts on this slide? I mean,
Yeah,
I threw the
yeah,
Linux travel laptop in there as just because I'm like that kind of nerd. So, I mean, I will take a like an Ubuntu box or something, and I'll take that
yeah,
because, I mean, it's not that Linux is impervious or anything like that. It's just Windows is a much, much bigger target. And then, so
yeah.
I feel a little bit safer. What are your thoughts?
It's a mindset perspective too. People need to understand, especially if you're not experienced in international travel or not good with situational awareness or understand that as you travel, Americans are a target for multiple reasons. Because a lot of people that haven't traveled internationally or don't pay attention to their surroundings, they don't think about how they're not as safe as they typically may be at home, depending on what country they're traveling in. There's a lot of people across the world that don't like Americans for any number of reasons. There's interest in capturing your data, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
banking or anything else. And if you're going to something like an adversarial country, something like China, it's definitely important to understand. I don't even know that I would take my phone with me or even turn it on in China.
Mm-mm.
The Chinese government is going they identify every American that comes into country. They're going to actively scan and do what they can to image any device you turn on while in country. And
Yeah.
if China is to the point to where if you have a laptop with you and you leave it in your hotel, they will come into your hotel room, image your laptop while you're away, and roll out. So I mean, it's China's a different animal when you're over there,
Yeah.
and they
People
know.
really don't.
Yeah, they don't know. They're not paying attention to this stuff, and it's good to know they know you're there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people without the experience, like you're saying, really just don't understand. I mean, we don't have them anymore, but we had a manufacturing customer who had operations in China. And one of the big deals for them, aside from just kind of navigating like the great firewall of China, because they've got operations in China and the US and all, one of the big deals for them was they have a bunch of proprietary information with regard to like how they do their manufacturing. But China has laws that mean that they are entitled to being able to tap into the network within this particular customer's manufacturing facility over in China. Yeah, I mean, any of these things that you're talking about are really important things to be aware of. And when you talk about scanning your digital footprint or your electronic signals or whatever, it's not sci-fi, man. I mean, it's actually
Yeah,
when you're walking around, if your phone's broadcasting Bluetooth, for example, or other radio frequencies, right? And so things like the Wi-Fi or the RFID blocking wallets. I mean, literally, you've got. I mean, we fool around with stuff like the Flipper Zero, right? You can literally take a flipper, drop it on your card, because some of us have tested that and seen presentations and whatnot, and pull the data right off your bank card. So this is actually legit. It can happen. And all somebody's really got to do is to get close to you, and have the right kind of equipment. And without having an RFID blocking wallet, they can certainly pull signals off your cards, off your devices that you're carrying with you. Um, and then common
and
sense things like webcam covers and privacy screens. We've got a laptop depicted here, but your phone's also important.
yeah, and there are numerous YouTube videos where these guys have got these handheld devices and they walk around and look for people that have their wallet in their pocket, and they just kind of walk up and they have the device in their hand and they just wave it by their pocket as they
Yep,
walk by, and they capture their credit card information.
100%.
And it's that simple, and you would have no
No
idea.
idea.
And it happens daily. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy stuff to capture, and people just don't understand how easy it is to pull these things.
Yeah, and I mean, and then the low tech stuff like the privacy screens for your laptop and your phone. I
Yeah,
mean, that's just common sense because I mean, you're sitting on an airplane. Think about it. There's that little gap between the seats, and the dude sitting behind you, or on the train, or whatever, can just literally sit there and watch what you're doing, look at the emails that you're sending. All these sorts of things are important, and we don't want to be giving away, your your personal life information, but also especially if you're working and you're overseas. I mean, think about the risk to your business. When people can just kind of look at what you're doing. So listen, man, is this just like juice jacking came out? I don't know when that was, years and years ago, and it was sort of novel, right? But and I think it was probably on some crazy, like CSI or NCIS, or they put that stuff on the fire on these shows. But it actually is legitimately a thing, and it's actually been in the news recently. So,
Yeah. Which I went, I was trying to remember where it was. It was something I had gone to for a birthday party or something. And it had, there was a charging bank kind of a deal.
mhm,
It looked kind of like it was near like lockers that you could put stuff in, and they had this charging piece to it. And I know that there was what looked like an antenna on top of this station that was done for charging.
hmm,
And I had my laptop in the car. I went and got it, pulled it, and there was a network that was identified to that charging station. So I'm like, made me wonder if they were trying to, if they were doing that, they were, somebody had something set up to capture data off devices that were plugged into that charging station. Because there's no
yeah,
reason to have an antenna attached to a charging station that's tied into the rest of the network. I mean, there's no need. You don't need that.
no, you don't.
So
That's
I'm like, man,
hilarious.
they're probably capturing this data and selling it to somebody for
Yeah,
people come in charging their phones, and they're just yanking their data while they're charging their phone and selling it online.
yeah. Geez, honey, why is there an antenna on the charging block?
No one, I guarantee you, no one else has even paid attention to it.
Yeah. They've got one in our gym, where I work out, and I'm like, I never use that thing. I mean, I don't know that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm not
Yeah,
going to plug my phone into it. Um,
yeah,
I just take one of those battery banks, right? That's how, if I can, I mean, I try to avoid that.
yeah,
I just try to use a power bank, or um, like we're saying here, use an AC outlet, right, with your own wall wart, your own block. Uh,
yeah,
get a data blocker. I looked at these. They're cheap. They're like $12, $15
yeah,
for a good one. And so, just so you know, right, if you're listening to this podcast, we're going to talk about data blockers. As far as I could tell, there's two different kinds. There's like sort of a kind that uses like sort of software to block the data transfer, and then there's others that are hard pinned, like physically pinned, so that you cannot transfer data over. And I personally would recommend the ones that are pinned physically, so that I know that when I plug my laptop or my phone into this USB data blocker and I plug it into something else, it's physically not possible for data to be transferred.
yeah. There was a vendor that was handing those things out at a
Mm-hmm.
conference, and I had got one, and I'd wanted to test it to see if it was really blocking those. I haven't done it yet, but it's
Yeah.
something I'd like to test just to see, because I've seen more and more vendors hand those data blockers out. Use this before you charge your device somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like at trade shows or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
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 Right. And I mean, trade shows to me are cool, because you can always find some neat little gadgets and things like that. But, just to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, whenever you have a gathering, and you're talking about how Americans are always targeted. So if you're going to some event in the United States or overseas, and it's there's going to be a lot of people there. I mean, just think about from a bad guy's perspective, they're thinking that there's a lot of people there too. And so then it's like, basically, how many of these people can we start targeting? And especially if they know Americans are going to be in attendance, especially
Yeah.
in many significant numbers.
And the cybersecurity conference stuff that I've gone to, I I haven't been to one yet where I haven't talked to someone who has told me that they have purposely gone on to see what kind of data they could collect within the conference. Because when you go in, there's the login for the conference Wi-Fi that
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
use,
Yeah.
and that they would set up stuff to see what they could capture on that environment, and then on
Yeah.
the free Wi-Fi and see what they could capture there. Because cybersecurity guys get bored for 5 minutes, they're going to start trying to do, see what they can do.
I might have tried that one or two times for sure. I mean,
Maybe.
because right, you're bored. I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? You're waiting, for 30 minutes in between some conferences that you want to attend, a keynote or whatever. And I mean, personally, it's not, maybe for me at least, it's not quite so much that I'm bored. I'm curious, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
I'm here in a room with 100 and something, 200 other guys and girls who are, interested in cybersecurity. I'm just curious, what can I see? Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, um, So Bluetooth is another vector or another way that your phone or your laptop could be compromised, or at least give somebody more information about you and your device and things like that. So we want to
Right.
make sure that that's secure. Like
Everybody's
just, hmm?
everybody's so used to leaving their Bluetooth on. Like
Yeah,
the earbuds, they turn the earbuds on or off.
yeah,
Just they leave that Bluetooth on. It stays on all the time. Don't think about turning it off because I'll go in and turn mine off. I'll turn it on, use it, and turn it off.
yeah. I'm not as good about that as I should be. I'll admit that. But I do. I'm like you. I mean, I do. If I if I remember, I try to turn it off, keep it off. I mean, not only for the privacy reasons and all, but I mean, my battery lasts longer. So so let's talk about like a checklist, right? And I think we've got a couple of different sort of variations as we kind of wrap things up over the next several slides. But it is important to make a checklist before you head out of town, right? You want to make sure you got all your stuff, right? And make sure you got everything in order. Doing things like patching your devices and make sure everything's updated. Make sure your VPN's working. Hopefully you're using a VPN like you and I are all the time, right? Which should be part of the way you roll.
Yeah.
Make sure your apps are pre-installed. I wouldn't wait till I was at my destination, right? I mean, if I knew I needed something, go ahead and install that here stateside, and on a network that you sort of trust, right? And then back up your data.
And for anybody that's concerned, well, how do I patch my phone? What do I do? A lot of times, if you haven't turned your phone off in a while, a lot of people have a habit of leaving their phone on indefinitely. Turn your phone, let it all the way off, turn it back on, and a lot of times that will do it. And if not, you can go into your settings and just search for just put in update, and it'll
Yep.
give you the security update, system update. You can check both of those. It'll tell you if it's updated or not, or if you need to do it, and it'll do it. A lot of times, turning the phone on and off it'll do that automatically, but you can check by going into like I said, your settings and just search update, and it'll give you that check.
Yeah. Yeah, and just thanks for pointing that out. The steps, and most of the modern phones, like both iPhone and Android, for the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi, you just obviously just pull down from the top, and you get a little panel, and you can just click your Bluetooth and or your Wi-Fi off when you're not going to be using it.
Yep.
I think we talked about this already. Privacy screen protectors. Make sure that your phone locks. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the defaults are, but I mean, for me, like this is a pretty good range, 30 to 60 seconds of inactivity. So that, hey, if I forget my phone, which I've done, for Pete's sake, I'm over 50, man. I've forgotten my phone. And, I'm glad that I got it set to lock, because otherwise Larry's going to be trying to figure out, look at all my details. Right. So,
The screen lock thing's kind of funny. I've seen something to where somebody they had the facial recognition on it where you look at it and it unlocks.
yeah.
Someone had people say that their kids look just like them, and I've heard of instances where a son or daughter has gotten their parent's phone and was able to use the facial recognition to unlock their parent's phone
Yeah.
and do stuff. So you never know. That kind of piece is kind of funny to be aware of. But yeah, having different options, whether it's fingerprint, face recognition, or whatever, the multi-factor piece to do something for you to log in. But usually it's the quicker piece to unlock the screens. But
Yeah.
that's not bulletproof technology either. But yeah.
I don't do the face. I don't do the face unlock, because like I want to know that I'm intentionally, and I just use my fingerprints. So I want to know that I'm intentionally, giving it my fingerprint in order to unlock my phone, because of, I hadn't really heard about what you're saying. It's just something it just seems a little bit more secure if I just actually have to touch the phone.
Yep, I agree.
And then the other thing to know is, like, by default, a lot of the lock screens on phones will display certain content. Like when you get a text message, it might display, hey, Jenny's texting, like her name and like a little snippet of whatever she's saying. There can be other things that can be on the lock screen, which I always try to like make sure nothing is on my lock screen. If I'm looking at mine right now, it's got the date, it's got the time, it's got the temp, and that's it. I don't have anything else on mine. And if you send me a signal message or something like that, it's not gonna even say that I've got a message. It's just, that's the way I have mine set up.
Yep, me too. Same thing. Yep.
Yeah. So, what else we got here? Strong passwords and MFA. Yeah.
And they had
Big deal.
there's the new article of a piece came out, and the news has been playing with it about it's presented as a new breach where 16 billion passwords or whatever or logins were compromised, and it's not a new breach. It's actually older info stealer, ransomware, and other credential compromise pieces that were all gathered over a mass number of incidents, consolidated, and then put onto one site and reshared. But the news has gotten a hold to it and saying that it's a new breach, it's a new attack, it's a new incident where 16 billion
Yeah.
credentials were compromised, but it's not. It's a reshare, kind of a consolidation of current, newer, and older breaches that has all these credentials that are being shared back out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't put it on here, but that just makes me think like there's a great site out there Troy Hunt runs called Have I Been Pwned?
Yeah. Yeah.
PWNB or ED. But
Yeah.
if you just search that up, you can go out and put your email address in there and it'll find out whether or not your credentials might have been included in any of these data breaches that have happened over the years. So that's actually a good thing to know too. And also some of the good password managers like 1Password or Bitwarden. And again, I mean, I'm trying not to endorse products or anything. But those are pretty common, but they have a feature in there that will tell you whether or not the password you have has been compromised, right? And then I'll kind of help you make sure that they're secure. And I personally am a huge fan of password managers because back in the old days when I was in my 20s, dude, I could literally remember a lot of long passwords that were complicated, and now I can't, and I
Not so
don't want
much.
to anymore. And so
Yeah.
I just use a password manager religiously because they're A, convenient, and B, if you're using the right one, they're actually pretty bulletproof. And I think they're important for people to use for sure.
Yeah, I have to use one because I'm one that uses different logins for everything. I don't repeat a
Yeah.
login for anything, no matter
Nope.
how small it is. And they're all wildly different. And I can't remember it all. So I've got the password keeper that uses my fingerprint to even allow that to be used. So it'll go to
Yeah.
log in, I have to hit the fingerprint and then it'll load it in. But yeah, I have to use that stuff too. I can't, there's no way I'm keeping it because there's too many and they're all different. So
Yeah.
I've got to do that to manage it all.
Well, you made me break out my YubiKey. So I've got mine set up so that my password manager, every now and then I've got to re-auth, and I have to actually plug one of my YubiKeys in there and in order for me to gain access to my vault. So
nice.
I'm a super nerd.
Yeah,
all right. We talked about some of this already, right? Download your apps first. I think we've kind of covered that.
Yeah, we're good there.
And I think this is the last slide or the next of the last one.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I mean, follow these tips, share these with your family members and your friends. A lot of people do tend to travel more during the summertime. And, our goal is to make sure that we're equipping you with the information that you need in order to stay safe, stay secure, keep your data protected, and all that good stuff. So I guess with that, anything else, Brian, before we close out?
No, that works, man. Hopefully all of this becomes common sense for everybody eventually, and it's reflex and you don't even have to think about it. So that's the goal.
Yep. Same. And, everybody, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, share the video. Let us know if you've got any ideas for content we might want to include in an upcoming podcast. So thanks, Brian. It's been awesome.
Good deal. Appreciate it. Thanks, Clay.